Hey, welcome back to Fixing It Blind. So today we are going to be doing the CV axle on this here Can-Am. It is a 2001 Traxter XT 500. And basically what's going on is this left front CV axle is clicking, and the right front we're replacing as well, but I'm only going to show you one side. But we're going to be replacing that one as well because the previous person who worked on it installed it, left it loose, took out the wheel bearing, and damaged the axle. So we're going to put two new ones in. That way we know when it leaves here, when it leaves the shop, she's good to go. Alright, so take your caliper and kind of set it up out of the way. Don't let it just hang. Set it up on that upper control arm, kind of like this. And see, I just got it sitting up here. Or else, use some tape or bungee cord, hold it in place. Anything so that it's not just hanging from that hose. All right, I'll be right back here. We're gonna get some more tools and get this hub pulled apart. All right, so one of the first things we're gonna do is we're gonna take a screwdriver and we're gonna pop this rubber cap off. Okay, you just kind of got to dig in there, get behind it. Okay, and this just kind of helps keep debris out of the threads and out of the bearings. Not so much the bearings, but mainly out of the threads from knocking your CV axle loose. Just take that, we set it aside. Then we're gonna grab our side cutters, okay? And we're gonna take these parts of the pin, right? And we're gonna bend them straight. All right. And then what I use this hub as leverage. So I go in and I get a hold on the inside of the side cutters, and then I use that hub as leverage to pull that pin out. Okay. So we got to take this out so we can get that nut off. All right. Now let me grab a socket, and I'll be right back, and we'll pull that nut off. All right. So we got the right size socket. Gotta move you guys back a little bit. And we'll hit it. Now the best way to do this is with an impact gun. I mean, if you don't have an impact gun, leave the brakes attached. Have your buddy hold the brakes nice and tight, and then hopefully that'll hold it solid enough where you can break it loose by hand. But most of the time, you really want to have an impact gun. All right, so now what we got to do is we just got to knock the CV shaft loose. So you see right here in the middle, there's a little indent. Right, let me drop you down. Let me get you down in there so you can see what I'm talking about. This little hole right here in the middle, that's specifically there to put a punch in. Typically use an air hammer, but today I'm going to just use a hammer and a punch. A lot less noise. So what we do is we just tap her. Tap her until she won't move no more. And then on these, what a lot of people don't seem to remember is that this hub should just come out. It should just come right out. But a lot of times, like I said, I live in Minnesota, they get completely rusted and seized on. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull that off all as one piece. So we're going to start here with the tie rod. Okay, when you take the tie rod out, let me move this light so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Alright, so down here on the bottom, you'll see another one of these pins. It's just a safety pin to make sure the nut doesn't fall off. And we take our side cutters. Most of the time you can just grab them by hand and move them. But we want to bend those straight as we can. and then kind of push it out. And again, I just kind of go on the back side, the loop side, and just spin them out. You know, we don't want to reuse these unless we absolutely have to. I have new ones, so we will be throwing in new ones. And they just break. All right, now you have two different sizes you need. You need a 16 millimeter, and that goes right here underneath the boot. Okay, sorry, let me readjust you guys. Right here underneath the boot, and that's going to help hold that post from spinning. And then we go ahead and we take a 17 mil. 17? Nope, sorry. $19 millimeter. And then we go ahead and loosen them up. Now this one's already loose. So we'll just go ahead and spin her out. And what I like to do once we get towards the end here, I'll take my hammer and hit straight up on the nut, try to hit square, just to pop it up and out of that hole. Then go ahead and spin her out the rest of the way. And you can see how rusty that is. But surprisingly it's tight, so we're not going to be replacing this at all. We will definitely go ahead and put on some anti-seize on there. So we'll put the nut back on there so we know where it's at. And then we are going to move on to the upper ball joint, okay? And that's got another pin in it. So we grab our side cutters again and get that pin out of there. Sometimes they're kind of hard to get in there because you can see this one's right on the CV axle. You just kind of push her straight. So we'll grab on here again, use the spindle as leverage, pull her out. And this one's also loose. So it's kind of a good thing we're going through this front end anyway, because either parts didn't get tightened or they vibrated loose on it. My guess is last time someone worked on it, it was probably left loose because they're pinned in place, so it's hard for them to vibrate loose. Now there is just enough room to unthread this nut all the way and not hit the CV axle. So basically, this side, okay. The other side, there was enough room for me to take it all the way off, but not on this side apparently. Alright, now I'm going to do the same with that lower, and then I'll show you how to separate them all. Alright, so basically how you get them to separate, to get that nut the rest of the way off, is you when it's up here, you just go ahead and hit the knuckle right here. Don't hit the ball joint, hit the knuckle, okay, the steering knuckle, or spindle, whatever you want to call it, and then take that nut the rest of the way off. Let it drop down. Be careful, there's a washer that you need. And then what I like to do is I like to take and put the nut and washer back on, just a couple turns. Just helps you remember exactly where it went. Now to get the bottom off, the same thing, except for this time we have to lift up on the spindle while we hit the knuckle. or sorry, not hitting the knuckle. We're hitting the lower control arm. All right. That's not breaking loose very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread the, we're going to thread, here, sorry, let me tip you down a little more. We're going to thread this nut back onto the lower ball joint, okay? Okay, and then we're going to hit straight up on it. And it should just pop eventually. All right, I'm going to get this to split, and then I'll get back to you. It's kind of hard to work around the camera here. All right, so we got that loose. Now we just got to kind of wiggle it around a little bit. Tap it. All right, and we pull this off the spindle. Oh, you can see the seal's already coming out. This bearing is completely shot. Looks like the seal's deteriorated and everything. We'll replace that in the next video. So what we need to do here is we need to get this CV axle out, okay? And that can be a complete pain sometimes, and sometimes it just comes right out. So let me move this light so you can see in there. Okay, so back in here, let's see, let's put you guys over here. Okay, so back in there is the differential, okay? And that's where the CV axle is going into. And we need to get this out. And these ones are nice because you can just kind of pull a couple times and they'll come out. And you're replacing it anyway, so who cares if you tear it apart, you know? If you tear it apart, then it just makes it a little more of a pain to get back in there. The factory ones have this guard, you know, a seal guard on them. The aftermarket ones typically won't have that, you know, but you're paying a couple $100 for an aftermarket or for a factory one versus, you know, about, you know, half that for an aftermarket one. Yeah, there's lots of play in these. All right, so let's get this one out of the box and get it installed for you guys. Now, any decent brand of CV axle is going to come with a new cotter key for the axle nut. Okay, we definitely want to use that. We don't want to use a junk one, you know. And they usually come in a bag. Got to unbag them. Now you see what I mean? The new one does not have that ring on it. Okay. Now we can pop that ring off the old one and put it in on the new one. But since the other side was already replaced without it by the previous person who worked on it, we're just going to go ahead and pop this one in there the way it is. There is a seal. There's a seal inside the differential. This little ring here. Okay. Oops, sorry. Let me get a better view for you here. Okay. This little ring here at the end that moves. Okay, this is actually what retains the CV axle inside of the differential. Okay, and that's what you're going to see fighting with. When you take it out, it has to actually compress this. And these ones aren't too bad, okay, to pop in and out. But like on a car, a lot of times you got to use a pry bar or a hammer to install them. So we're going to go ahead and pop this back in, or pop this new one in, and then we'll get on with it. So we look at the differential. There's a gear right there, and we pop it in. And I usually like to turn it a little bit to get it to pop in. Alright, so this one's not going to go very nice. So simply all we do is we use a hammer to get that ring to compress and pop into its groove. So what I do is I take and I hold pressure inwards. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing over here. Alright, so I take and I hold pressure in, okay? You'll feel a little bit springy here. And then I go ahead and I just hit right here. And you see how she just went? And that just popped it all the way into the differential. Okay, so all the way. Oh, you can't see a dang thing. Let's get a flashlight. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and move you over here. Now you see right in there? You see how she's all the way in there? That's how you know you're good and seated. It'll be pressed up in there and the seal will be nice and tight against the CV axle. Okay, I will continue this when I go to put the bearing back together. Because right now all I got to do is get the bearing and put that in. So I'm going to cut this video off here, and I'll show you how to reassemble it when we put the bearing in and finish up that part. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. And this here wheel bearing, okay, and it's a press-in style. We got the new ones right here, new bearings, new seals, and you can see they're a pressed-in style bearing, and then the two seals. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do that for you guys today. First off, we got to start off with getting this old seal out. You can see it's actually already damaged, it's broken. So we just take a screwdriver or a punch, kind of go in here, tap it in. Typically I lock this down in a vise, but it's easier trying to do this over here with you guys. Oop. Stop moving. Alright. There we go. Get that out. And of course it completely separated. Alright. So now if you see down in here, what I did is I hit it at an angle so that it would bend this in so I can get a screwdriver back behind there. And start working this other half of the seal out. There we go. So we'll set that aside. And then down in here, let me grab a rag here. Let's see. Get some of this grease out of here. Okay, right down in here, we've got a snap ring, and you can use a couple screwdrivers to get it out. Typically, I like to use the snap ring pliers. Sometimes they are stuck and you got to use a screwdriver anyway to kind of shake them loose. Come on. All right. Oh, I think these snap rings are worn, or snap ring pliers are worn out. They're not even cheap ones. They're snap-ons. All right, let's loosen her up a little bit here. So what I do is I take the corner of the screwdriver and I hook it into one of the holes, right? And then I just give her a couple taps, kind of get it unstuck. Oh, where are you? There we go. All right. Now let's give her a shot. Alright, so we got them squeezed together. What we'll do is we'll get the screwdriver in there behind the clip. Once we get a little bit out, we can kind of work the screwdriver all the way around it to get it to finish up. And then of course, since we're doing this on camera, she's not going smooth. Let me move you guys so that my hand's not blocking the view. Let's see. I think if we put you there, you should be good. So it squeezes in. We kind of get the screwdriver in here, back behind here. Release it. Ah. All right, there we go. You gotta be careful because this thing can go flying. I bought new ones, but the bearings do not come with new ones. So I recommend you pick up a pair of those. Sometimes they're just too rusted and they just bend on you. All right, so now what's next is this brake rotor and hub assembly. Okay, that should have just pulled out of here. So we're gonna have to give it a little bit of help. So we're gonna find something that fits that size and give her a couple taps. Try and break it loose. Let's see, how's this socket? That socket should do. Basically here, I'm gonna back you up. We're gonna just use the edge of the table here to kind of hold on to the axle nut, or the spindle. I'm gonna have to go take this over to the vise. But basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold this with the vise, and then I'm gonna punch this through in the center here. I'm gonna punch this center part out. And that should actually be loose. So unless you live in a state like Minnesota where you get a ton of salt and such, and people riding them in the winter or through the mud, they shouldn't be rusted in there. All right, I'll be right back and show you guys. Alrighty, there we go. Basically, this part is the part that was in here. Put a socket on there, had to pound that through, and I clamped it in the vise by this right on its side. Okay. So now this is the side that we took that clip out of. Okay. And so the side that the clip is on is the side that the bearing has to come up. So this bearing has to come up, up and out. So up, straight up through here and out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over, okay? And we got another seal here, okay? We need to pop that seal out. And let's get this out of the way. And we'll take some sandpaper and clean up that other hub. And then we'll use some anti-seize so that it does not get stuck in there again. And we'll use a very, very small amount of anti-seize, okay? I don't know if you ever use that stuff, but it just gets everywhere. So we're going to grab our screwdriver here. Grab a hammer. There we go. And of course, this seal doesn't want to cooperate either. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a bigger hammer. Alright, so I went and got us a bigger hammer here. And what we want to do is we want to go right on the edge. Right in here you can kind of see this seal is just kind of pressed in there. So we want to get on the edge there. And I want to get on the edge here. And kind of hammer it in. And what we're trying to do is trying to give us just enough gap to buckle that seal. Let's try a smaller screwdriver. Looks like she's stuck in there. You see how I buckled it? So now we can kind of peel that away. And we can get our more heavy duty screwdriver in there that we can do some prying on with. Tap that in there. And we're just trying to get it to buckle. Once it buckles, we should be able to get that seal out. Man, we might have to use this. Usually they don't fight this hard, but that thing is rusted in there. Well, the good news is inner race. Oh wow, never seen that before. This is the inner race, or at least was, and she's completely broken in half. All right. Well, that is interesting. Let's try buckling it in place. Well, I'm going to get the seal broken loose, and then I'll come back to you. All right, we beat on this thing enough. We got the seal loose. So you can see what I did is I ended up just taking it, angling it this way and hammering in. Let me know if you guys want to see, you know, the full thing, me fighting with the seals, and or if you just want me to edit it down, make it shorter and quicker. Anyway, so now what we got to do is we need to find something that is this size. So you see here, let me see, what can I use the point with? Screwdriver. All right. So we got to clean up a little bit. See this outside ring, okay, from here to here, this little part, you don't want to hammer on that. That's where the bearing is stopped up against. So we got to find something that fits just inside of this. That's big enough to fit that bearing. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to pound her out. All right, let me go find a socket that'll fit. All right, so what we got the inner race. I already knocked out the inner race, so I could see what size I need exactly to get on there because the ball bearings just kind of exploded. So we got this socket. It just barely fits. I mean, it barely fits, but it sits right on the inside of the inner race. So we're going to use that to hammer it out. We're going to use a swing press. Typically, I'll use the hydraulic press just because it's a lot safer and less noisy. But today we're going to do this. It's a little easier to video this, and you guys probably have a hammer and sockets at home. So we're going to go ahead and give her some taps here. All right, she came out. That's what she looks like. This is the inner race, or sorry, the outer race. And if you could just get the aroma of this burnt grease, it's just horrible smelling. So we're going to kind of clean her up a little bit, get some of that grease out of there. Take a look down in here. What we're looking for any damages or any junk sitting up there on that lip that's down there at the bottom. And so we'll take a screwdriver, just kind of scrape around there so that we can make sure that our bearing is going to seat properly all the way at the bottom. And then we want to kind of scrape around this one so that the seal sits nice in here. And I'll show you a trick to getting these seals in because they are a bit of a pain. So we just wipe her out. Wipe her out, get as much of that junk out of there as we can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want any grit in there. You know, the grease is okay as long as it's not compacted, but we don't want sand and dirt in there. All right, so we go ahead and flip that back over. I'm going to grab a paper towel. Again, we want to wipe this down, get all that crap out of there that we can, and place her down flat on the towel, just to kind of minimize the junk getting in there. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop this new bearing in there. Now, you know, we want to make sure this is where it sits, so we got to go all the way down until it seats in there. Oh, new bearing. Here we go. Now, when you're pressing bearings in, you do not want to press on here or this seal, okay? That'll cause you a whole lot of trouble right away. You want to press on this outer ring, okay? And a good way to do that is, one, you can find a socket that fits it, but you have a press tool right here, okay? So what I do is I take one of these that fits in here, and I use the old race to press it in there. Now, sometimes you can't do that, but most of the time you can. And you want to try and press it in as straight as possible. More times than not, if it gets a little crooked, you can hammer on the one side, and she'll kind of straighten herself out. So I'm gonna hold down here so it lines up with that other race, and we're just gonna pound her in. Okay, so we're going to check. See, we're getting a little bit crooked here. Yep, so we want to hit more on this side. So that's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and hit over here. Kind of tap her in. There we go. See how I just knocked that side in? And now we're a little bit heavy on that side, so we got to hit over here. All right. Now let's go ahead and send her home. All right, so now what we're going to do is right in here, there's that groove that locks us in here. So we want to make sure that we go down far enough, and it should stop up against the bottom here. Okay, you can see that there's just a hair of a gap, so we got to go just a little bit more, and that way it'll ensure that we can get that snap ring in there, because that snap ring is what kind of holds it in place. Without that snap ring, there's a possibility it could come out. All right, so now we should be good. We're going to take a small screwdriver, get in that groove there just to make sure we can fit a screwdriver in there all the way around. She looks even. All right, I'm going to go grab the snap ring, and then we'll get that put in, and then we'll pound the seals in. All right, so we got the brand new snap ring, okay, and we got our snap ring pliers. We got a mess going on this bench here. So we're going to go ahead and outside of the thing, we're going to put these in here, okay. This is how snap rings work. You just got two prongs. When they start getting worn out, like these ones are, they'd have a greater tendency of slipping off. But anyway, you just kind of put the back end in there. Go ahead and squeeze. Get the front end in, okay? And now we need to make sure that that is seated, okay? We don't want that to be loose, okay? We need to get that down in that groove. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can do it with a screwdriver and go and hammer it down. What I do is I take the old bearing, okay, right here, and it fits right on top of there. And I just give her a couple taps all the way around. And you'll notice, a lot of times you'll notice that she goes and slips right into that groove. All right. So this one does not look like it is seated all the way. I just want to make sure. So we'll tap her with a screwdriver. Let me just make sure. Yeah, see, it's not sitting in that groove. Yep. Why does that not want to seat? All right, so we got to pull that back out. All right, just remember when you're grinding a little bit off, just take your time, go a little bit at a time. You don't want to take too much. You take too much and she'll just pop right back out. We don't want that. All right, looks like we might be making some progress here. So we're going to go and switch to the one that goes on the inside here. She's a snug fit here. Alrighty. Looks like I just need just a hair more on this side. And basically what you want is you want it to sit in there nice and flat. Okay. We need a little more over here still. A little bit up here. All right. Now you'll see right here is a little bit banged up. On this particular seal, that's not going to matter, but we are going to try and straighten it out a little bit. There we go. Now it won't interfere with anything. Now, this inner seal, that rides on the sealing surface on the CV axle, and this one rides on another surface of the CV axle, so it's like double sealed to keep all that dirt and debris out of there. Now you want to make sure you oil that up or grease it up. Greasing would be the best, because it's not going to sling off or run off as fast. And that's what I'll do, is I'll be greasing it. So I'm going to end this one here, and I will show you, we'll do one more video on reassembling everything. So the brakes, the CV axle, putting the spindle back on, and moving on. All right, well, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks, bye. Hello, welcome back to Fixing It Blind. This is the final part of this Can-Am series. We're going to go ahead and reassemble everything. So first thing we want to do is we want to take the spindle here. We want to grease up these seals, both the inside and the outside. We don't want them to be dry. Having them greased will make it so that they don't get tore up as bad. And for that, we're going to use, since it's a Can-Am, we're going to use genuine Polaris grease to seal that up. Any grease will do, even lithium grease will work. Basically, we just take it and put it in there, and we don't want a ton, but we need enough to coat it all the way around. And then this has two seals, so we want to hit this outside one as well. All right, then let's grab that inside one. Just get a little bit more grease here. And now that we got grease on it, we want to make sure we keep it nice and clean, because the grease will attract any little bit of dirt that's in there. And just give that face a wipe. Get the excess off. All right, make sure everything's good and clean. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take it, put the CV axle in first, and then drop this bottom post down here, down through the lower control arm. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put our washer on for the CV axle. Over here. Go ahead and put our washer on for the CV axle. Oh, actually no. I'll edit that out. All right, now we got to grab our castle nut here. Okay, that goes on the bottom ball joint. And there should be a washer for it too. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this washer on the lower ball joint here and then get that castle nut started. Of course, we felt like going ahead and dropping her here. Okay, now that we got that started, we're not going to tighten it down, but we are going to come up here to the top one. And we already had this nut sitting up here so we didn't lose it. We're going to line this up and then pull it up on there. And you're going to need to give yourself a little bit of room so you can get the washer on there. Okay, and then you'll be able to just barely squeeze this nut in there. Then once we got both those in there, let's go ahead and spin this up as far as we can get this upper one up. All right, and then go ahead and tighten up the bottom one by hand, so as tight as you can get. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and put this tie rod. We're going to go ahead and put this tie rod on. That's this over here, Josh. Okay, and that's right here. So we want to go ahead and loosen this. Put her through the spindle. Put the washer on underneath. And then put the nut on. And then what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll tighten everything. The spindle, or having the tie rod on here, is going to help the spindle stop from twisting on you while you're trying to wrench on it. So find a good angle that you can get on the nut, and then go ahead and twist her down. Now sometimes the center stud will sit there and spin. Because what I find is that sometimes it helps if you kind of put some pressure on it. But this one here is not doing that. Usually the ones that are all worn out are like that. And you gotta make sure once you get it tight, you also have to line up the hole through the ball joint with one of the grooves in the castle nut. And that allows you to put a cotter pin through it. And that's just to make sure that stuff doesn't back off. And as for cotter pins, we're going to use this set here. Just picked up at a local hardware store. Has all kinds of different options when it comes to it. The ones we're looking for are probably going to be either these ones or maybe even the shorter ones, but I like to use the long ones. So we'll go ahead and see if we can't get that through one of the holes there. See if we're lucky and one of them lines up. All right, looks like we got to turn her a little bit more. And the process is the same for the lower ball joint and the tie rod as it is for this one up here. We're just showing you on this one because it's a little easier for you to see. You see how it comes through on the back side here? What you can do is take a pair of side cutters that you used when we were taking the thing out and go ahead and bend it away. And what we want to do is we want to bend them up along the nut. Okay, we don't want it going down and hitting the CV axle and tearing up that boot. And what you want to do, what I always do, is bend one direction and bend the other one the other direction, and that'll stop it from tipping down and tearing stuff up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the tie rod and the lower ball joint, and then we'll get back to you. All right, so now we got to put the hub on along with the brake rotor. Now, if you can see, I don't know if you can see in here, but there's some gouges right here and right here from previous attempt at replacing these bearings, and they kind of gouged it up. So it's not going to slide in there like it should. We might have to tap it into place, but most of the time, generally, you should be able to just put it in here and then slide it right in. So right now, we're going to square it up. We're going to tap her in. And we just got to get it enough to where the CV axle can actually pull it through. All right, looks like we got to go a little more. All right, looks like we should have enough there to get the nut on. And hopefully we'll be able to get it on there with the washer as well. Just barely. So we're going to go ahead and tighten her down with the impact gun. Want to make sure it pulls that hub in all the way. All right. Give her a spin. Make sure she's not locked up. All right, now we got to back her up just a hair. All right. Now you see this castle nut here has slots for it to go through, but the hole is actually farther out than that, so it doesn't actually go through little castle nut parts. It just goes through the CV axle. We want to take these, bend them in. All right, and then we want to go ahead and pop this cover back on. One thing I did do before I slid this hub in is I coated the hub with a little bit of grease. Thought about using anti-seize, but this has access on the inside of the bearings. You make a tool that you pull the hub out, pull the CV axle out, and then you put a tool in there to grease the bearings, and that would allow that abrasive in there, so we didn't want to do that. All right, next we just got to get our brake pads on here. Where'd the persuader go? Stop it. All right, now that we've persuaded it back into place here, got to get the bowl holes lined up for the caliper. And the only thing that caused us to have such a hard time is because they damaged that that hub to begin with. If that was nice and smooth, it would just slide right in. The problem we're having is it was not seating in there all the way. All right, and then there's just two 1/2 inch or 13 mil bolts that go on here. We tighten those down. They need to be good and snug. You don't want the brake caliper to come loose on you when you're driving. All right. Alrighty, now all that's left is we got to put that spring in here when we get it, and the new clip on the end of here. Those won't come till tomorrow, but I won't record that. But it's really easy. You just put that spring in the way you took it out. Here we can actually install the spring right now. There we go. And the spring just simply goes in here like this. This little loop goes, that shaft or that rod or whatever the heck you want to call it, pin, goes through there. That just helps keep tension on the pads so they don't rattle around and make all kinds of odd noises. Alright, now all we gotta do is just put that clip on when I get it. But the dealership's not open, it's a weekend. Then we'll put the tire back on. You guys see me take the tire off. It's the exact same, but in reverse, put it back together. Alright, well thanks for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.